Verstappen dominance on the opening day of the Austrian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen secured pole position for the sprint race, whilst Jos Verstappen created the latest Red Bull shenanigans with Red Bull team principal Christian Horner. From RacingNews365.com, my name is Nick Golding and I'm joined as always by lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, it has been a spectacular day off the circuit, quite good on the track as well. Let's start on the circuit with Max Verstappen, fastest in the only practice session, despite stopping briefly, creating a red flag, then claimed pole in the sprint. At Red Bull's home race on the track, it was a good day.
Yeah, for a moment there, or for a few moments at least anyway, it looked like it was going to be a really big problem for Max. As you mentioned, about 35 minutes into the one and only practice session for this Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Bearing in mind it is a sprint weekend, so they only get the 60 minutes of track action to try and get the optimum set up, figure out what they need to do on the different sets of tyres. Yeah, he stopped. He had an issue coming out of turns 9 and 10, the fast sweeping right-handers, and he'd already gone past the pit entrance, so he couldn't dive into the pits. And quite clearly we saw from the onboards there was a glitch. He slowed going up the hill, the start-finish straight. And as we thought then, this looks like it could be a major power unit issue. As we know in Max, he's come into this weekend, as he will be doing going into the upcoming Grand Prix weekends as well, knowing that another power unit issue and a replacement of any of the components related to that power unit will lead to a grid penalty. As it was, not only was it ideal for him where he stopped, he had the composure and the understanding to slowly allow his car to roll backwards, because he knew that there was a gap in the pit wall, that once all the other cars had come off track, that then allowed the marshals to wheel him back through that gap in the pit wall. His pit crew then took over and he was able to be wheeled then back into the garage. It obviously led to a red flag period, and the major surprise was that within seconds of the green light being switched back on again to initiate the start of final practice, there was Max coming straight back out the garage. As we've since discovered, it was a simple sensor issue. Try saying that when you've had a few beers. And he was able to get going again, just a quick reset of the systems. And he finished top in FP1. Well, say FP1, FP, that was FP. It basically. FP. And then for the 3 SQ sessions, the sprint qualifying sessions, he topped the lot. Just absolutely, once again, another brilliant performance from Max Verstappen. He and that car are absolutely in sync. Andrea Stella tipped his hat to him post-sprint qualifying. Toto Wolff did exactly the same. When a driver is at the top of his game, as Max is at the moment, it is quite clear there is no beating him. So he is now not only going to take some beating in the sprint race itself, but also in the main qualifying session that takes place on Saturday afternoon, as well as in the Grand Prix. Still a lot to play for. Let's face it, Lando Norris was within 1/10 of a second of Max. Oscar Piastri in third place on the grid for the sprint, not too far adrift of his teammate. Those McLarens are really in the mix as well. But right now it looks like it's going to be another dust-up, shall we say, between Max and Lando for all the honours that are going over the course of this remainder of this weekend.
Yeah, it does seem, based on the opening day, that Ferrari and Mercedes are kind of jostling for the third and fourth best team here. McLaren, as you mentioned, Lando Norris will start the sprint race in second, with Oscar Piastri in third. It does seem that Max does have that slight edge.
Absolutely. As I say, Christian Horner called it in the team principal's press conference that took place on Friday afternoon, basically outlining that Max is at the very top of his game at the moment. And that is quite clear from everything we have seen over the past few Grand Prix weekends, where he has managed to win 3 of the last 4 Grand Prix, even though it has been pretty clear that he has not been the quickest. Yet somehow He, and of course with strategy from his team, but predominantly Max, let's call it that way, he has just been absolutely at the peak of his powers, driving sublimely right now. And he's definitely going to take some stopping over the
Yeah.
course of this weekend, that's for sure. But I am not going to rule out Lando and McLaren because we're yet to properly see, bearing in mind, as I say, we've only had 60 minutes of practice. We've yet to properly see, to get clear indications to what the long run pace is like.
And I suppose we don't really get that at all this weekend until the race itself, because the sprint race doesn't really offer that much in terms of, what other teams race pace, because it's such a short event. Quickly go through the top 10 for the sprint race. Verstappen on pole with Norris and Piastri in second and third, George Russell in fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, a frustrated Lewis Hamilton in P6 with Sergio Perez P7, the two Alpines of Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly in 8th and ninth, and Charles Leclerc in P10, who will quickly mention a massive error by Ferrari in SQ3, obviously really left him with not enough time to get around the lap. And then to make things even worse, before he even left the pit lane, issues with his car.
Yeah, that was what predominantly was his undoing. He was in the queue. He was no problem as to where he was in the queue. If he'd managed to follow that line out of the pit lane, I'm no doubts that he would have managed to get in a lap. But as we mentioned, there was an issue with the anti-stall. So as they were coming out the pit lane, he then pulled over to one side, and you could see the clock counting down in the corner as to the time left, because even though that session is 8 minutes long, they'd all left it until literally within the last 2.5 minutes. I think I'm right in saying, to decide to pull out of their garage boxes and head towards the pit lane. The Mercedes duo of Lewis and George were first out. And as they came out the pit lane, there was just about 2 minutes left. And then there was the queue of the other 8 cars behind them. As I say, Charles was in the queue, no problem. But as he pulled over with about 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that,
if that,
you knew even then, if that, he had to get round.
Yeah.
The anti-stall system was kicked in. And although he managed then it was reset and he got going again, I think there was something like about 65 seconds. And you appreciated that the lap itself was going to take 65 seconds, a flying lap. So he didn't make it across the line to start his flying lap. And just, an absolute disaster from him. Can we put it this way? It is only the sprint event.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, not a great start for him and Ferrari. He conceded himself that after the sprint qualifying session, that again, they're perhaps not quite on the pace of Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes at this present time. So maybe in the main qualifying session at tomorrow, if he and Carlos are any higher than the fourth row of the grid, then I don't think it would have been too bad a session for those guys.
Yeah, Leclerc definitely a driver. He's probably focusing more on qualifying tomorrow rather than the sprint race. Right, let's talk off the circuit, because like I said at the top of the show, today's been Verstappen dominated from the entire family. Jos Verstappen has had his latest words towards Christian Horner in return. Obviously, Horner's spoken. We've had stuff from Dr. Helmut Marko, stuff from Toto Wolff. It's led to even more suggestions surrounding Max Verstappen to potentially Mercedes. It's been a pretty crazy day off the circuit.
Yeah, here we go again.
Where do you even start?
Quite clearly, we've known this since everything kicked off with Christian Horner and the allegations surrounding him of misconduct with a female employee inside Red Bull, that there has been no love lost between, certainly from Jos's side towards Christian, that's for certain. Jos made his feelings abundantly clear in Bahrain that the team was ready to implode if Christian continued at the helm. Well, here we are, 4 months on, Christian is still at the helm, yet still there is an undercurrent that flows between those two that is clearly not healthy and is clearly not helping Red Bull and certainly Jos's son Max. Just to give you the very broad outline, Jos was due to drive the RB8 from 2012, the car that basically helped Sebastian Vettel win the third of his 4 consecutive titles with Red Bull during his domination of that period. It's called the Legends Parade. It was due to be the 9th event. It's something that they hold annually, and it's just like any other those special parades that you get at certain Grand Prix. Lovely to look at old cars, few old boys driving them. Emerson Fittipaldi he's due to drive this weekend. So Jos, as I say, was due to be in the RB8. However, he came out with comments to a Dutch newspaper and also a Dutch website stating that Christian Horner, as far as he was concerned from rumours that he'd heard, was trying to do everything he could to block Jos from taking part in this session on the basis that it was a session that was going to be filmed, going to be photographed, and he didn't want any pictures of Jos driving a Red Bull. Christian has turned around and said that effectively is untrue. He's not put any block in. Jos has then basically now turned around and indicated that there is basically saying that as far as he's concerned, and despite all the protestations to the contrary, that Max is still in the running to be a Red Bull as a Mercedes driver. Now, Max turned around himself on Thursday in the driver's press conference and was asked quite categorically, are you going to be at Red Bull in 2025, yes or no? There was a little pause. Okay, yes, said Max. That's all we needed to know. Now, Max wasn't asked the question, and he should have been, in my opinion, are you going to be at Red Bull in 2026? Because that, as we know, is arguably the more pertinent decision that Mercedes are looking towards with regard to its driver for that particular year. Yes, of course, it would love to have Max in the car for next season because it would allow him to build up towards being integrated in the team and then in the car for 2026 when the new power unit regulations come along and it's all change. Christian being a very naughty boy, but he can sometimes make these jesty comments, turn around and said in the team principals press conference today, well, there was a driver there, and he didn't name him by name, but we all know who's referring to Lewis Hamilton. There was a driver there that quite clearly knew what the engine regulations are going to be, what the power unit is going to be, and he has decided to leave and join Ferrari. So the clear inference being from Christian that, well, Lewis has an indication as to what that Mercedes power unit is going to be like 2026. So quite clearly he's decided to jump ship because he's got an indication that maybe it's not going to be as good as perhaps Mercedes are hoping it will be. So it's all a load of shenanigans, as I say, kicking off again between Jos and Christian. And now Jos, as I say, the bottom line is he's come out. Bottom line, is there a possibility that Max could be at Mercedes? Correct, was his response. So make of it what you will, folks. This is a story that is going to continue to run and run. And despite what Christian might say, despite what Max is saying, despite what Jos is saying, we do not have a clear indication as to what Max Verstappen will be doing for 2025 and 2026.
It is a fascinating situation. Of course, for those who are watching this video, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and be checking out racingnews365.com for the latest developments on what is probably going to continue over this weekend and beyond, you'd imagine. Ian, very quickly to finish the show, we need a prediction not only for the sprint race, but also for qualifying.
Sprint race and qualifying.
A double whammy.
Max is just looking too good. Got the indication that from Andrea Stella post the practice session, he was asked who he felt was looking good, and he said Mercedes. Well, turns out that Mercedes weren't actually that great. Lewis Hamilton, by his own admission, had a disastrous quote-unquote sprint qualifying. So for me, it's not a bold prediction. It's simply going to be Max will, I'm sure, sweep Saturday and take the sprint victory, and then double up by taking qualifying as well.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Max is just looking too good on the opening day. So I'm going to go Max for the sprint win, Max for pole, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to complete the sprint podium. But a bit of a bold prediction. I'm going to say in qualifying tomorrow afternoon, Logan Sargent is finally going to out-qualify Alex Albon, something he did do today in sprint qualifying for the second consecutive sprint event. So well done, Logan. From everyone at Race News 365, this has been the latest F1 update. Be sure to check out the second part of our exclusive documentary into Moto3 sensation Colin Via. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel to be included in the latest prize giveaway, where you can win a scale model F1 car of your choice. Good stuff. From myself and Ian, we will see you tomorrow. See you later.
Take care, folks.